I gotta go ahead and put a disclaimer. So here we go. This is gonna be a video on my first impressions of Hellraiser Revival from the trailers and some commentary from the developers. So if you are underage or sensitive to graphic material, please do not watch this video. All right, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the channel. I got a cool video for y'all. I got a game trailer slash some commentary regarding Hellraiser Revival. Me personally, I'm really looking forward to this game because I've never seen a game like this. Seems interesting. It was built on the Unreal Engine 5. The gameplay, from what I've seen in the past, looks absolutely spectacular. So let's jump into this. Everybody, please help me on my YouTube journey. Hit that like button, y'all. Also, if you like this type of content, go ahead and subscribe. Much love. Let's get into it.
You have a void, a desirous, gaping heart.
Clive Barker's Hellraiser Revival didn't just impress me for being an incredibly accurate representation of the Hellraiser franchise, but also has the potential to be a pretty rock-solid survival horror game.
We have such sights to show you.
Having played about 40 minutes of Clive Barker's Hellraiser Revival, I have 4 big takeaways. 1, it checks all the most important boxes. It's got sex, it's got blood, and somebody even calls you a feces-covered pleasure monkey. So they're nailing it. Number 2, if I can best kind of paint a picture of what this game feels and plays like, it's like if Condemned was combined with Resident Evil Village, because it focuses a lot on melee combat, but then it also has this very whimsical fantasy horror element to it, as well as guns and inventory management. Number 3, the production value of this game is impressive. I don't think I've ever seen Hellraiser represented in this fidelity in any way in the movie.
And you know what's really crazy is the way they put Hellraiser up in the game looks exactly like how he looked in the movies, which is absolutely amazing.
And that is for the better. It is cool to see this stuff kind of, I don't know, come to life thanks to the Unreal 5 engine. And lastly, the game is so brutal, it is so graphic, that at my preview event, they had vomit bags just in case you couldn't handle the sex, blood, and feces covered pleasure monkey. So starting from the top, Clive Barker's Hellraiser Revival is a first-person, narrative-driven survival horror, which for me, well, that's checking all the boxes because those are all things that I love to hear. But in an era where horror movie franchises are just, I don't know, kind of being turned into video games, those video games are often.
That's crazy. That's one thing that I've really noticed about video games these last couple of years. Is they've been really doing a lot of spin-off on horror games. And honestly, I've been really digging that. That's a huge W, because right now multiplayer games are becoming fucking garbage, complete fucking trash, full of full of microtransactions. I'm fucking sick of it.
Asymmetrical multiplayer horror games where, whether it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game or Friday the 13th or any of those, what they also.
And that's what I'm talking about. Those two games plus several others, including Dead by Daylight, like they're all clones. And I'm sick of that too. They're all like everybody's trying to clone one great game. And they gotta understand is like they'll never be able to recreate that. They'll never be able to recreate that because that studio, you know, put their magic on their game. You know what I mean? Like not everybody thinks alike, perfectly alike. So that the idea and perception of it's gonna be different.
Did Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I'm very
Now that was really good. That was really, 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 really good. I like that.
relieved that Saber Interactive is taking a much more refined approach in trying to honor Clive Barker's material, and so much so that they are working with Clive Barker in order to develop.
That's crazy. And y'all wonder how they got it so perfect, the recreation. That's the answer. That's the answer. And I think that anybody would think likewise that Clive Barker had no progress towards this game. Completely false. Absolutely crazy. To make a game of this caliber, the actual creator of that series would have to have involvement 100% for that game to feel right.
This game. So when I'm talking about honoring Hellraiser, I'm talking like they are not cutting any corners on this. They are going full on horror.
Also, everybody, this is quite graphic, so I might put a disclaimer at the beginning of the video just to warn anybody. So there you go.
Gore, nudity, full frontal nudity, sex scenes, BDSM galore, and then of course like, you know, leather demon dudes who are coming out of hell or heaven, depending how you look at it, and they're not pulling any punches. In fact, it is so graphic, it is so intense that of course the first question I asked the developers, I imagine everyone's going to be asking them is, so what is this game going to be rated? Because even if it was mature, you know, they're pushing the envelope here, and you know, it's TBD on what it's rated. And you know, I asked them how willing are you going to compromise on this, and they said they're going to push it as far as I can. Now, for context, to give an idea, the opening cutscene of the game, or at least the opening of my preview, was a full frontal sex scene where it features the main character Aiden and his partner Sunny going at it. And in typical Hellraiser fashion, these characters are trying, it's all about pleasure and pain. So these two characters are exploring the beautiful world of pain and pleasure. And they also just so happen, little cube, the infamous Hellraiser puzzle box that opens.
And that goes hand in hand. That cube and that dude, when people say Hellraiser, those are the two things that they think about.
You know, gates to hell, where Pinhead and the Chatterer and all the other sexy leather demon people come out. And during this intercourse, they end up opening the gates, in which Sunny, Aiden's girlfriend, gets dragged into this otherly, helly dimension, in which now Aiden must go in to try and find her. And while this plot has been explored in the Hellraiser films, the thing that I'm really excited that Saber Interactive is doing with this game is they're taking a lot of liberties, introduce a storyline that we have not seen done in the film. So in this case, when Aiden comes to after exploring this labyrinth, he finds himself in the clutches of something called the Scarlet Church, which is basically a cult of people who are trying to get into this other world. They're trying to get into this labyrinth, this like pleasure hell. And well, you know, that means finding people, killing people, torturing people. Some of it is consensual, and I really didn't get the full grasp of how it works. But you are suddenly thrust into a world where you are navigating this Scarlet Church, these cult followers who kill people for pleasure, who kill people for other people, and it's this amalgamation of art and pain and pleasure kind of folding over, and Aiden is forced to go through this world, and that's where like the big survival horror element is pushed in. I was stealthing past people, silently taking them out. Also, Aiden is a ex-convict and part of a biker gang called Hellraisers. You know, just
interesting.
And going through this environment, you are trotting around dead, mutilated bodies. It is graphic. It's brutal, but there's also a little bit of fun, weird levity to it. There's a particular scene when Aiden has to get a knife from a body to attack someone who is trying to get him. And while it's happening, as Aiden pulls the knife out, he realizes that the guy is still alive, but the dude that you're pulling the knife out of is like, oh my God, it's so good. And there's something really comical about like pulling a knife out of a guy who like clearly does not seem like he's gonna make it, but he's loving every second of it. And that plays into combat as well. So while you're actually fighting these dudes and fighting these cultists, they seem to get pleasure out of you actually trying to kill them.
That's crazy.
Who am I to judge?
That was
but
like,
the combat's
you know what's really crazy is like in the movie, it's kind of like the same thing, you know. So they literally took every single note from the movies and applied it to this game. And shout out to that.
pretty rock solid and simple enough. So you have your basic sort of dodge maneuver, but the interesting fold of it is that weapons will break over time, but depending on the type of person you're fighting, you might actually have to switch up your strategy. So I was fighting a dude who was completely covered in leather, so my knife wasn't quite getting into his flesh, so I had to switch to a baseball bat with nails to knock the leather off of him in order to then finally take him out.
Cool.
But you're not
That's awesome. That's that's very realistic in my eyes. That's dope.
Not only fighting these things. In fact, that is because you enter the labyrinthian, hellish world of Hellraiser where you must run away from the Cenobites. In my demo, I ran away from the Chatterer, who is my favorite of the Cenobites. He's just a dude with his teeth, and it was so messed up because you were running through this world that is completely shifting at all times. You actually have a sprint slide mechanic because you have to dodge like chains and booby traps as they're coming. And all while this is happening, you hear the teeth like chattering.
Reach your impossible. Lenovo Legion.
And like reverberate. Around you, and it was absolutely terrifying. Now, the thing that I didn't get to see in this demo is you eventually get your hands on the cube, which you can use as a weapon, which gives you magical abilities. So I only got to see them allude to it in the trailer, but I didn't get hands-on with it. I did, however, get to play with guns, and this is where the Resident Evil Village kind of gameplay aspect of it comes in. Saber Interactive is absolutely going full in on like the fantasy horror part of it, because you'll be in a BDSM club with beats blasting 1 minute, and then you will find yourself in a world with like zombies and other creatures, and that's kind of what reminded me of Resident Evil Village, as well as the crafting system. So you'll be crafting ammunition, you'll be crafting health, and all that jazz. There's also a currency that you'll find, and even though I didn't meet the characters who I'd be exchanging that with, they did tell me that it is lore accurate. It is things that you will be getting. They're items that are tied to the lore of Hellraiser, these shiny coins in which you can then trade in for weapons, other materials, as well as weapon upgrades. That being said, there is not a skill tree, however. That is important to note. Also, the inventory is like classic Resident Evil inventory system where you have to like shift and like more like Resident Evil 4 and Village in that way, which is A-okay in my book. Now, just to wrap up, a couple cool things. They did get Doug Bradley back, who is the dude who has played Hellraiser in all the films. So he is taking the helm to take his iconic, cool voice.
It thirsts for excruciating pleasure.
They were able to tell me that the game was going to be about 7 to 10 hours in length when it finally comes out. That being said, there is no release date. We do not know whether this is coming this year or next, but nonetheless, this game shot up on my radar as not just some licensed horror movie grab, but actually a game that could potentially be my most anticipated survival horror, probably next to Resident Evil 9 coming in the next coming years. So, with all that said, video games have come a long way since Pac-Man. All right.
Oh wow, y'all. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. I think it's gonna be a dope game.